Rickey Bottalico, NBC Sports Philadelphia, Phillies pre- and post-game analyst. He joins us to take a look at this team, which is right now, Rickey, about ready to face a pretty challenging stretch of games against teams playing some really good baseball. But should we start to say, hey, the Phillies are every bit as good as these other teams?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, I'm starting to wonder if we're looking at this the wrong way. I mean, should we be looking at it that these teams have to face the Phillies now? Because you look at this starting rotation this Phillies team has, I mean, this is no joke anymore. I think we took the number 1 and 2 spots and said, well, we'll run with that for a while, but the 3-4 spots have stepped in. You had Zach Eflin step up. I mean, this team's no longer a laughingstock, and their offense is adequate to score some runs.
What do you like about Pivetta that should make us feel like he's got the longevity to make it through a season, giving you quality starts like he is?
Learning experience. I mean, when you think about them, most of these guys, the one thing that you could say about them is that they're maturing before our eyes, and it's no different with Pivetta. I think you look at Pivetta, I mean, he understands what he has in his repertoire now. It's so hard to go into the major leagues and know if you're good enough to start with. But it's even harder to figure out exactly who you are. And I think Pivetta has finally figured that out. And I have to say the same for Velasquez, because I think both of these guys have really kind of come to terms with who they are and what's going to make them good. And I'll go to Rick Kranitz, the pitching coach. I'll say he's done a heck of a job with those two guys.
Rickey Bottalico with us. Rickey Velasquez has been such an enigma at times. Do you think he turned a corner the other day in that start where he got off to the slow start and then was given the time to work his way out of it and actually got better?
Well, odd enough you say that. I think that was a big key for him, to go out in the game, not have your best stuff early on, and then see if you could pitch through it. I think he's gotten to the point now where, you know, maybe it's just watching the other guys. Aaron Nola gives up runs early here and there, and he just bounces right back. Sometimes guys have a hard time doing that, and I think Vince was one of those guys where he felt like, oh, no, here we go again. This is going to turn into a really bad outing. And instead, he turned that game, I think, into 6 innings, 12 strikeouts. So, yeah, turning the corner is a good thing.
Then 6 1/3 last night, 5 hits, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. Now, of course, in last night's game, the quality of the opponent, too. There's been a lot of people that aren't ready to buy into the Phillies based on who they've played yet. What do you say to those people?
You can only look. First off, you can only play who's in front of you. I think we all know that. I mean, are we going to discredit them for, you know, beating up on the teams they should beat up on? No, we should be praising them for that. We should be praising them for the record they have right now. I look at it this way. You have a game to play 162 times a year. If you win 90 of those, you're probably in the playoffs. So you have 72 games that you could throw in the garbage. I look at this team right now, and the way they're playing, I think they're a lot – I think this is what I meant by we're seeing something different. I think they're a better team than everybody's giving them credit for. And I'm talking at this point during the year. I don't look into crystal balls, and I'm not good at it. But I would say this much. I will say that this team, when they go in to play a team like the Cardinals aren't really looking forward to this. First of all, you get a guy in Vince Velasquez yesterday, throws high 90s. Then you get the relief of Arrieta tonight. This staff scares people. And I'm gonna tell you right now, it doesn't matter who's standing in front of them. I look at the Cardinals right now. That team's supposed to be pretty good. They don't look that good to me.
Right.
I don't know how you guys feel looking at their team last night.
They made a lot of base running mistakes. I saw that.
Their lineup didn't scare you.
Yeah. No, and you mentioned their lineup didn't scare you. What is it about the Phillies lineup? Like, if you're a pitcher trying to get through that lineup, there's not a Mike Trout, there's not a guy that jumps off that you say this is the linchpin, or is there, or is it more of a lineup that just has a lot of depth to it with a lot of really good hitters?
I think it's more of the depth thing. I think you have a lot of guys in that lineup that aren't afraid to take pitches. They're not afraid to wear a starter down. And when that happens, in a pitcher's mind going against them, you know you're going to make a mistake in an at-bat. And the one thing about these Phillies hitters, they rarely miss mistakes. And I think that makes an average hitter a good hitter. So I look at this team and I say they're good hitters. Plus, add on top of that there's different heroes every night. Like you just said, there's not a Mike Trout on this team, but there's different guys that can hit the ball out of the ballpark. There's different guys that have come up clutch. You look as far as last night. Pedro Floriman, that home run last night was big. A lot of people don't look at it that way, but you had insurance in that game. That was a big hit. And I just think that, you look at Scotty Kingery not getting the job done, but others are behind him. People are stepping up for everybody else. When that happens in a full season, that usually turns into a pretty good team. You could look at that historically.
Now, Ricky, that Pedro Floriman home run you referenced, too, there were a lot of people out there who were like, all right, Alfaro's on base, bunt him over. There were some people that were that's what the old book says. The new Gabe Kapler stuff says, nope, swing away.
Yeah, the old book's been thrown out the window, I think, for the most part. I mean, this whole thing, get them over. But there's going to be games where you need that. And Gabe did say that last night, that there will be games that we do need a bunt, get them over, and then a base hit scores them. But you're up a couple runs. You have all this positive energy flowing within your clubhouse and within your bullpen. I don't think you're really that worried about losing that game last night with Pedro Floriman coming up to the plate. You're already up a couple. Let him swing the bat. And
Floriman, by the way, Pete mentioned the base running by the Cardinals. He makes the play, the infield's in, and he makes that throw home. I mean, and then the play that Santana made, they actually asked on the broadcast, is that the right play to make? I mean, they basically ran right into that. You have a lead. A lot of times you'll just take the out, but the Phillies play are starting to play better defense, which helps the pitching as well.
Yeah, that's one thing. Look, the defense was telling the runners, don't run. And on both occasions, the Cardinals,
right,
of all teams, made base running mistakes. But you can go even further and say the Phillies didn't make the mistake by throwing the ball away. Although Floriman tried. He threw a bounce on the plate. Yeah, but still, they make the play. Alfaro does the right thing, running him all the way back towards third base because third base is occupied. And then on the Santana play, why would you go on a guy like Santana when you know he likes to throw the ball? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, I really think the Cardinals left at least 2 runs out there last night. But, credit the Phillies. They did what they had to do to get those outs.
You did have the little mix-up with Herrera in center. Last time we talked to you, we were talking about how he's coming around and he slides head first into first, but it seems that once in a blue moon he gives you that. I mean, that play in center field, what happens on that?
Well, quite frankly, that ball's not in center field. I mean, it's almost straight away left field. Yeah. You remember Kelly Leak? Was it Kelly Leak from the Bad News Bears?
Bad News Bears, yeah.
He went and caught them all.
At some point, you got to let somebody else take a baseball. I understand that you're the center fielder and you take anything you can get to, but a knowledge of where your other players are, it would probably behoove him in center field because he ran probably 180 feet to try to catch that ball. And he called for it, and I thought, in my opinion, Hoskins was already there for the ball. I mean, Hoskins basically went down on a knee, and he was right where the ball was. So, I mean, for me, have a knowledge of where everybody is, and don't be a ball hog, I guess, on that play. I mean, I understand center fielder, go get everything you can, but knowledge plays a part now.
And that's the situation where – going back to Little League, if the center fielder calls it, he's in charge, he gets it, much like the shortstop. Whenever he calls it, everybody else gets out of the way.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. Center fielder's in charge. He is the quote-unquote captain of the outfield.
Yeah.
Ball goes up in the air. If he thinks he's getting it, go get it, but be smart about it. I think that's the – I know Kapler talked to him last night, but I mean that's the whole part of it is being smart in a situation, and that it just wasn't smart. I mean Hoskins was under the ball, he had a pretty easy run at it, and instead it almost ends up in another collision, which would have been worse than what happened.
Could have been catastrophic, but it wasn't. Rickey Bottalico with it. So Ricky, you brought up Carlos Santana a minute ago. Those are 2 guys that the Phillies have in the top 10 in the National League in RBI: Carlos Santana and Maikel Franco, and this is what they said they brought Santana to do, maybe bring out the best in Franco. Is that's what you see happening? Is Santana having an effect on Franco?
Well, quite frankly, I think that's part of it. I think being able to talk to somebody that's been there for a while and has done this for a while and is somewhat the same type of hitter, although, I mean, they both have power. They both drive and runs. But Franco, I mean, goes a little bit beyond that. I don't think he's trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark anymore. I think he's just trying to make good, solid contact and let the ball go where it may. I mean, you know, a lot of things happened to him last year, but I think the biggest thing for him is staying out of those prolonged swinging slumps. And I'm not talking about at-bats. I'm talking about the long swing with the head coming out and looking into the third base dugout. There's one thing you learn in Little League. Keep your eye on the ball. You can't hit what you can't see. And it's funny because that's not something you say about a lot of big league hitters, but for Franco, that's one thing you definitely say, is when he doesn't have his head on the ball, he's not going to hit the baseball. And last year, we would diagram his at-bats and say, okay, anything on the outer third of the plate, he's not hitting. That has changed this year. He's staying on the ball. He's driving the ball to right field if he has to, or right center field. He's become a much better hitter this year. I mean, I can't say for 100% it's Santana, but I'm sure that has helped.
Rickey Bottalico is with us. We'll leave you with this because obviously you pitched and we're a closer. I want to get your opinion on watching Alfaro because a lot of people talked about him calling games and handling pitchers. It's seemingly that they're giving him more of a leash. Now, at this stage of where he is, does he call pitches? Does the coach call the pitches? Where is that in his development right now? Are those pitches coming in from the bullpen? Because it seems that he's getting better at that because the pitching staff is getting better. Because essentially it seemed like he was a guy that they didn't want to use because maybe he wasn't ready to handle a pitching staff. So are you noticing that he's doing a better job, or are they really handling that for him?
Well, to start with, you have definitively 3 pitchers who will throw any pitch with conviction, and I would say that's Nola, Arrieta, and I think Pivetta right now. So it makes it that much easier that if you put down a sign that may or may not be right, that pitcher will still throw to that spot and think he's going to make a good pitch, which is half the battle. The other thing is I think it's a half and half. I think there are definitely still some pitches coming from the bench, but I think he's starting to get into a mode where he knows these pitchers well enough where he should almost get, you have muscle memory. It's no different than calling pitches for certain pitchers. You should have a very good idea of what their go-to pitches are at this point during the season. You have 40 games and you've seen each of them 5-6 times. So you should basically know what pitches the pitcher would want to throw next. So he is getting to that point where it's going to be a full-time job. He's not there yet.
Rickey Bottalico, Phillies pre- and post-game, NBC Sports, Philadelphia. It's Phillies Cardinals this weekend. And he joined us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Thank you, Rickey.
Thanks, guys.